Yes. Layla, that poem just blows me away. So I'm going to start with my own poem, since I did have a chance to practice that one. This is a poem that I struggled with for years, and finally I approached it in a way that I sometimes use to approach problem poems, and that is to change it from first person to third person. And I recommend that as a technique, because I tend to write a lot of my poems from first person, and I found that sometimes they work better in third person because I'm able to get that emotional distance that is really needed sometimes. And I needed the distance for this poem. This is called Campfire. She twists a linen napkin in her hands, looks down as she sips her Riesling, a twitch in her upper lip, whispers to her son something about an incident at summer camp, how she left the sunset fire circle to fetch a sweater from her cabin, got snatched by the maintenance man, dragged into the storage shed. She kept it sealed, a burning ember inside her, simply straightened her shorts, rejoined the other girls to sing What a Friend We Have in Jesus and roast s'mores. She asks, how could he have done it? Such a nice young Christian man, always so polite. She takes another sip of wine, fingers trembling, rosacea cheeks, tear-streaked now. Wonders aloud if that one vile act had changed her life. Thinks it might explain the failed marriages. Hopes it didn't make her a bad mother. That God will forgive her and that nice young man. She leans across the table for a hug, sighs, I'm tired now. Wants to go home to her dark apartment, knowing nothing can extinguish that fire. Thank you. So, again, I apologize for not being better prepared, but I have found a couple of poems in here by some friends from Santa Fe. Alice and my wife and I moved up here 3 years ago from Santa Fe, and there's a wonderful writing community down there, and these are two of very fine poets. This first is by Lauren Camp, who has been winning some major awards lately. This is called Tactics. After one pure moment, she refuses. Still, he multiplies into her buttery skin and down-turned mouth, sucks the glow from her calligraphed? Sorry, I've never seen that word. Calligraphed belly with his spit and liquor. He sucks her whole as her mind dabbles in a room where chaos has climbed into bed and never stops loosing available flesh. Night bends low to blue. She knows to obey when the man moves again, slurping at her salt and waist, his hard spittle staining her neck hollow to down her fringe and deep mat of her wilderness. The night tips back, flavorless, as she continues saying, no, no name, no face, no home to crawl to, and her no bleeds out between his grunts, and no becomes her home, no, the place she's leaving. And this other poem is by a very dear friend named Janet Eigner. This is called Something to Do with Hunted Animals. She asks if I would care to see something she does with the animals she has hunted. Holds out an exquisite deerfoot, curved, ebony hoof, warm, tan, fur, 3-inch carpentry screw where the shin bone was. Takes a shy pride in her skill, a tender reverence in work she does for those she loves. If you strap them under right away, they dry in this shape. You use them to hold up a gun rack. She followed her father everywhere. As a child, learned man things, but never perfectly. Grew up playing hardball with neighborhood boys. Many times, a big boy grabbed her from behind, twiddled her privates, threatened to kill her if she told. She backed off from men, lifted weights, ran, starved herself, hunched over, shuffling, a defeated woman, pinched face, green under a heavy tan. I, who will not own a gun or eat another mammal, stand in awe at the exquisite grace of her gift, the pulsing life still given off by this stump, stare in grief at the fixed curve of the hoof, repeating the hunch of her shoulders. David, if I might, I would like to conclude with a poem that actually is about the empowerment of women. Might I do that? It's not in the book, but I feel called for a little healing, maybe. I used to teach at the Institute of American Indian Arts, and I heard some amazing and sometimes amazingly tragic stories from my students, and some of them ended up as poems, and I always got their permission. This was written by a woman who grew up on the Lummi Reservation right across the bay from Bellingham, where I grew up, so I felt especially connected to her and her story. It's called Trial by Canoe. After the whale calf nibbled the bow of their canoe, she knew it was a bad idea. Climbing into a birch bark boat with her betrothed, paddling all the way around the island, battling riptides and broadside waves, freighter wakes and sideways rain. The elders said it was a way to learn, called it spirit time, not human time. Time to trust the wisdom of the ceremony. Time to put their wedding date on hold. Still, it didn't make this test the best way to calm her terror of the open sea. From the time they shoved off from shore, he yelled at her all day to keep up his pace, called her useless as a reservation dog. Worst of all, he told her she was weak. At sunset, they returned, more or less intact, except for wedding plans thrown overboard. That night, she smiled in her blanket by the fire, knowing she could paddle on her own.